comments. Just want to remind us that here at the Sarah Stevenson Tuesday Forum, we are nonpartisan. Though the discussion is good, but I wanted to at least highlight that.
The time is now 8:35, and welcome to another thought-provoking edition of the Sarah Stevenson Tuesday Morning Forum. My name is Winston Robinson. I am a facilitator, along with co-facilitators, Ms. Laura McCletty, Ms. Mary Johnson, Ms. Carlenia Ivory, here's my script right here. Ms. Jackie Edwards Walton, Ms. Natalie McElrath, our timekeeper as well, Mr. Steve Johnson, our website editor and archivist, and our chaplain, Ms. Sharitha Sherrill, and Dr. Thomas Moore, house musician. Our forum runs from 8:30 to 9:45, at which time we will pause for announcements from the audience. Announcements can also be sent to S. Johnston, that's Johnston with a T, at TuesdayForumCharlotte.org. We begin every morning, every week, with a prayer from our chaplain, Ms. Aretha. So, if you would please.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Bow your heads with me as we pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for today. We're thankful that you are God and that you are an ever-loving God. We're thankful that you forgive us for all of our sins every day. We thank you today for keeping us focused. Our opportunities are unique to inform our constituents so that they will know and be better educated about what's going on in society. God, remember America this morning, our children every place, in Ukraine, the Holy Land, here in Charlotte, in our neighborhoods and in our homes. It's in your Son, Jesus' name, that we pray. Always. Let us say together.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Aretha. And to follow that, we always have a moment for silence. So you take a minute to silence your phone. Don't be the one. Yeah, wait till my dad gets here. Dad, the only person in America with a rotary cell phone. And we ring it. But yes. So we have any new people in the building? I don't believe we do. Oh, okay. Hey, it's your first time? It's the first time. Hey, tell us about this good old counseling world.
I am Teresa McCormick Dunlap. I live in Lockwood community. I am a psychotherapist, among a lot of other things. I wear a lot of other hats, a mother and a wife. And I'm just glad to be here.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Don't let this be the last time. All right, y'all. Today we have somewhat of a casual, open forum, but also a presentation. I would like to invite Mr. Robert Dawkins and Ms. Tiffany Capers to take the seat of the stars. Right on up here. And following this presentation, we will take questions from the audience. But again, it's kind of open forum, so we will allow them to, I guess, what we say in my word, set this thing off. And we will have thoughts from minds. And I know Ms. Aretha wanted to speak on some things. Right? I'll tell you what. While you sit here, we're going to allow Ms. Aretha to really start this. This is Ms. Aretha. Come on, this is a Charlotte legend. But again, this is an open forum. We will have discussions where we can kind of question each other. Ooh, okay, all right. Jay Hill just got back from the Hamptons. All right. Martha's Vineyard. Classic. Oh, man. You're giving out record deals. But again, we're open forum, as you see, very casual. And we will start with Saritha. You can kind of say what's on your mind, any issues, anything you would like to announce. That is the spirit of open forum. Ms. Saritha, tell us what you're thinking about.
I'm thinking about the Republican National Conference and those who listened How many of you listen to both of them? How many of us listen to both of them? Raise your hand. How many of you listen to one and then listen to the other one? Which one?
Democrat.
Democrat?
Could you repeat?
No Republicans.
He said how many
Ah.
people listen to both conventions? Oh, I think.
That was what I asked first. And if you raised your hand the one time, you will have to raise it again, because I know you watched the Democratic one and the Republican one. And what I wanted to do was see who knew what I know and what I saw. Did you see that at the Republican convention how the leadership changed?
No.
Explain.
The person who was the leader for the Republican Party was ushered out of the building by the police. You didn't see that? Anyway, they didn't want us to see it anyway. And there was no such thing at the Democratic convention. It was all camaraderie, and I enjoyed it, especially Michelle's speech. I'm like her husband. If I had to speak after her, I would not. I just wouldn't bother. I'd call it a day and be done with it. But there was some confusion, and Mr. T was there. He settled it by getting the police officers to usher her out and put a man in charge that he wanted. And that's what I see him doing with this Project 25. Thank you, Mary. I had my own notes for that. That's what I see him doing with Project 25. That's for next year, guys. That's what he plans to do as president when he becomes, if he becomes elected next year.
Question.
Shoot.
Why did? We're not live.
Well, it's still recorded. Oh, FYI, y'all, the citywide power internet outage. So this won't be live streamed, but it is recorded and uploaded later.
Why did they throw her out?
They didn't want
They just didn't want to want it.
But that's right. For no reason, they threw her out. They had her removed. I forgot the name.
The little lady that started out, she started out and
She did?
yeah.
So you saw it too?
I saw some of it. Yeah.
Okay.
She started out announcing
Yep.
who the states and how they were voting.
Yep.
And then suddenly she was gone. The only way you'll probably see her now is when they juxtapose RNC against DNC, talking about how lit DNC was.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see her, a little short lady in a black top, and that's who they ushered out.
Thank you,
That's
Teresa.
exactly right.
Talking to Miss Sarita, the sheriff said
You saw exactly what I saw.
It's amazing. So what does that mean, Miss Aretha? In your estimation, what does
In
that
my
mean?
opinion, that means that we are in for a dictator if he is elected. That's the way he's going to run. And our job is to do as Michelle ordered us to do. Get to work, do something about it. I already have contacted the minister in the cities that I know, this city, to get transportation, because a lot of our adults don't have transportation to the polls. That's why they don't vote. And they assured me that they'll have vans and buses and that kind of thing, getting adults to the polls to vote. Any other questions?
I did. It's
not really
a question, just a comment.
Go ahead.
Yes, I watched both conventions because I think it's important to know what the other people are doing. Okay? You need to know, what your enemy is doing. So, did you notice at the Republican convention there were no ex-presidents there? There were no other people who ran for president. They were not there. Like the Bushes weren't there.
They have already gone Kamala.
And even the people that ran against him, Nikki Haley wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
She did. Okay, yeah, she spoke, but she left. You know what I mean? She got it. She's probably trying to get a position. But some of those other DeSantis and all them, they were not there.
Romney wasn't there either.
And
He has come out saying he will not support it.
right, and also his vice president was not there, Pence.
Right.
So, you know, it was really powerful for those who were not there in support of him.
Mm-hmm.
Was his family there?
Oh, yeah, but his family was there.
But they
His
weren't there,
wife
really.
came, right, his wife came on the last day, and she was not a happy camper.
Mm-mm.
Okay, you could tell just the look on her face that she'd been forced to come.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Aretha.
Very welcome.
And before we go to Mr. Dawkins and Ms. Capers, I do want to recognize an elected official we have with us, the student body president of West Charlotte High School.
Hello everybody, my name is Sadaya Sadler, this is my uncle right here. Thanks for the introductions. I am currently West Charlotte's executive president for the student body in the 2024-2025 school year. I'm really looking forward to working with Tuesday Morning Breakfast. I'm definitely trying to get more student representation in these important spaces, and really make sure that everybody's educated, especially for our seniors who are eligible to vote during this 2024 election. Anything else? I also want to open up the floor. If you had anything, type of events, spaces, town halls, anything like that that you're willing for us to show up for, we would love to come. Or we are also open to inviting people who are interested in our student government to our events as well. So thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to hear all the amazing ideas. Thank you. Okay, if you want to contact us, I don't know if you have Instagram, but it's West Charlotte SGA, and then my personal email is, if you want to write this down, Nyla, Nyla Sadler, SADDLER @gmail.com. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sadaya. We're just 2 days in, you already skipping and doing work. Look at that. Congratulations. Well, this is just for we recognize our elected officials. No, she's not. She's been here plenty. That's my other niece. She's been here plenty of times.
Stop this now.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, guys. We got to get back on track. We got some business to talk about. So again, I wanted to bring Mr. Robert Dawkins and Ms. Tiffany Capers up to the front to speak about, I guess, what will be, the topic for the day is Project 2025. And as we see, we all have a post courtesy of Ms. Mary, which represents also the intersectionality of the world. And as Tuesday Morning Forum is sharing a post by Rapper Plies. That is amazing.
Yes, I would like for Tiffany to speak to a meeting that was held on Sunday of people coming together to try to make a difference, and also groups that are working together. And Robert's going to speak also. Because Robert knows everything, so we don't let him.
No, he does, for real.
Yeah, he's an
So y'all,
expert.
yes, tell us how we got here and what we need to do.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tiffany Capers, and I have not been at the Tuesday Morning Breakfast Forum for a little while, so it's good to be back in the house once again. I'm glad this is informal. We're going to do a little bit of freestyle and probably go off the dome for some of this because there's a lot going on in the community around getting people registered, getting people to the polls. And what happened on Sunday that Ms. Johnson is referencing is a group is meeting that's been convened by Mayor Bai Lyles, and she is trying to make sure that there is an integrated approach to ensuring that we get people registered and we get people to the polls to vote. Mecklenburg County is a majority Democratic county, but we did not show up as well as we could have in the last elections. So what we're trying to do now is make sure that we are getting people informed with voter education initiatives. We're also getting people registered, and more importantly, getting people to the polls. So we need to know if there are barriers to that, like transportation for our seniors or for our young people, what we can do to make sure that that's happening. So there are a variety of organizations that are meeting. Team Unity with Roz, Allison Jacobs, and Robert Pulliam, the Robert Dawkins group. Some members of the Divine Nine were there. Other community groups like Red, Wine, and Blue attended the meeting on Sunday. It is still a little bit in its formative stage. Working title of it is called Defend Democracy. We talked Sunday about getting youth involved, and I don't know if Generation Nation is at West Charlotte, but getting Generation Nation involved in all of those chapters at different high schools to make sure that our high school students who are eligible to vote are getting registered to vote. There's a controversy with some people not wanting groups to come into high schools because they feel as though if you are liberal leaning, you're also trying to indoctrinate young people around policy, which is not the case. You're just trying to make sure young people exercise their right to vote. There's obviously a lot of conversations taking places in a variety of spaces. Black men are definitely having conversations now about the election and feeling, quite honestly, where y'all been. You all haven't been looking for us up to this point. Now you're coming to us and asking for us to vote. So we need to think about what's the message there, what's the strategy to make sure our Black men feel like, yes, this is, not that you haven't been voting, but we want to make sure you're voting now and you're making informed choices about what is today, but also what is to come. We need to think about how we segment our approach. The 18 to 40 set, the 18 to 35 set is different from the 60 to 80 set. People who are low SES are different from high SES. Just because we are Black doesn't mean we have the same challenges, the same orientations around policy, and making sure we are sensitive to that is very important. So this group, working title again, Defend Democracy, is trying to think through all of that, making sure we are getting the message out to all areas of the county that need attention, and we're not just concentrating on the west side, for instance, where we're coming over to Greertown and making sure folks in Greertown are getting information too, that we're making sure we're reaching everyone who can vote, and that we get them to the polls so that they can actually exercise that right.
I think Tiffany covered everything. I wanted to come, because, this is home. I always come every political season, and it depends on which side of the fence as far as the political spectrum that I can work that particular time. So now that the firewall is up, the mayor's effort, and what Tiffany's talking about, is the part that y'all can partner with as far as Tuesday morning breakfast, because this is the 501c3 part. So what the mayor's concerned with is things that are nonpartisan, that involve social good, getting people out to vote because voting is important, these are the issues to vote about, that type of deal. So that's what Tiffany's side is working. The other side of us, on the other side of the wall that went up 90 days before the election, is us that do the actual partisan work. So we're out, supporting Kamala, Josh Stein, Braxton, all of the different candidates, so we can talk about endorsements and political work where the party can't. We've knocked, I think, about 8,500 doors in the past 12 days out in the neighborhoods. We're here in Precinct 16 for the next few days knocking. We just started knocking over off of Caps Mill Road yesterday. So we're going to knock 60,000 doors to get the message out about and vote for particular candidates as opposed to the social good. Now, actually in C, we got two sides, but C3 and C4. We're doing C3 work to support Tiffany and the mayor, but I'm not talking about that because of the wall, and I chose to be on the C4 side. So, I have Jessica and some other people working for us on the C3 side to support that. So I think both efforts are important. It's going to be an election that we need to turn people out for the issues, but I thought there was also a bigger need this year for us to be on the C4 side as opposed to the C3 side, because somebody needs to actually go to the door and tell people why not to vote for Mark Robinson. You know, people need to go to the door and tell people why not to vote for Donald Trump. You know, so that's the side of the fence we own, and that's us, the labor unions, you know, anybody that's on the C4 side, but we have to make sure that we don't coordinate. So I wanted to come, and even though I'm not coordinating with Tiffany, if you want to ask questions about social good work, why it's important to vote issues, Tiffany's here. If you want to talk about why the heck we shouldn't be voting for Mark Robinson, how to beat on Mark Robinson, how to beat on Trump, how to beat on the state Republican Party, then I'm here for that, because that's what I live for.
Okay, does anyone else have any? I had something to say, okay? I just want to say this about what you're talking about. I think that a lot of people really don't understand how dire it is. Because if you think about it, and I've listened to a lot of political analysts and all of this, and the Center for Common Good, they're actually here in Charlotte now, trying to get the vote out. The last election, they were in Atlanta, okay? And they focused on Atlanta, and they got Raphael Warnock elected, the minister who's now in the Senate. They got him elected. They came to Charlotte because they looked at our numbers, and they saw that Mecklenburg County is not voting like we should be. Okay, Mecklenburg County has enough registered voters to offset the eastern part of the state, which means that Mecklenburg County can turn North Carolina blue, but we're not going out to vote. Okay, Cherie Beasley only lost by 300 and something votes, and just think about thousands of registered voters in Mecklenburg County did not vote, and she could be on the North Carolina Supreme Court. She would be the Chief Justice of that. Or senator. She ran for senator also once. And so we need to think about that. I think that when we know what the numbers really are, it kind of hits home. Like, we got to get these people out. Another thing that came out of the meeting on Sunday, was the fact that we're not knocking on doors like we should, because it is labor intensive. Okay, you're going to knock on a lot of doors. You're going to go door to door to door. We feel uncomfortable in certain neighborhoods, you know, but I remember as a child, that was what people did. They went door to door knocking on doors. And those people basically are gone now, that generation. And so now we've had this lull of people who don't want to go knock on doors. But the number one thing, like emails and letters and postcards are not it. You have to make a face-to-face with people and talk to people. There's no compensating for it. Okay, so you have to talk to people, and that was the big message.
So I see Ms. Jackie, Shay, and Doug. Let me ask Mr. Dawkins and Ms. Capers this before we move on. I'm a systems guy. So what is it about the system that discourages our lack of participation in voting in the first place? And even Ms. Mary mentioned that we could offset Eastern North Carolina. However, if you look at the demographic makeup of Eastern North Carolina, it's largely poor and largely black. So what is the system that causes this hurdle for our political involvement?
I don't know if I have a specific answer to your question, Winston. I think that is a part of what this group is trying to contemplate. One of the questions I've asked around data. Who is it that we need to reach? Who is it that isn't voting, and where they're located? I think a part of the challenge when you are talking about a voting block of people who are poor and black, it is what is in it for me today.
Right.
What can I get done today that's going to make me have food, shelter, transportation, take care of my kids today. And so we have to be honest, I think, in having those conversations that, yes, we know you have specific needs right now, but if you don't get this election right, the needs you have today are going to persist. I think there's a narrative. I have brothers and they're pro-Kamala, but they've talked with me about what they think black men in particular are concerned about. They don't know that a lot of black men are comfortable with a black woman leading. They feel as though black men have been ignored. They also feel as though their immediate needs for today supersede. They don't care about her being HBCU grad. They don't care about her being AKA. They want to know, what is Kamala Harris going to do for me today? And Donald Trump, quote unquote, gave me $3,000. So there's a very immediate sort of, what's the return on my investment that's going to, I think, tip the scale. It's not a systems approach, but it's more of a marketing conversation. How do we get the message right to address the issues as best we can identify them? So that was a non-answer to your question. Those are some of the questions that I've been having as well.
Donald Trump is saying, day one, I'm gonna, make you very rich.
Yeah, so I think you got two things here, Wilson. First, you've got what we're saying, what you're talking about on the system piece. And on the system piece, for us that do knock doors every day, that we're in the neighborhoods with them every day, they don't see the party every day. But they see the party when you want something from them. That's the big piece. Secondly, black men get caught up on, people get caught up on black men and saying why black men don't vote. Well, next to black women who vote in the 80th percentile, black men vote in the 70th percentile. That's more than white men or white women for the Democratic Party. What they feel is the party doesn't represent them. They feel that the only thing that the party thinks when it comes to black men is that I'll give you how I'm going to save you speech. So every black man, when it comes to the party doesn't speak to you about how can I get jobs, how can I do that. They talk to you about, if we can get elected, we'll keep the police from beating you. If we get elected, and that's issues. But nobody asks the black man what to vote for. Also, the black man also gets isolated in the situations of just how progressivism or conservatism goes. So every black man isn't the one that sit at the table. So when you go and you say, like, I see liberal spaces, and black men come in and everybody says, hi, welcome to the room, give me your pronoun. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're talking about the pronouns. He, him, his, she, hers, this, that, the other. So the black guy goes, well, I'm just here. Well, sir, if you can't pick the pronouns and you're not in favor of that, this might not be the space for you. Well, now that's not the space for me, but then come election time, that's the space for me? That's one. Second, black men, specifically in larger cities, whether it's Atlanta or Charlotte, they're caught up with how do I live and what do I see that's a benefit for me. So when you come to the door and you say, even though I'm supporting, Kamala is going to change stuff. I've seen a black woman mayor, my life's still bad. I see a black woman district attorney, you know what I'm saying? I see a black district attorney, a black sheriff, black mayor, black county commissioner, black police chief, black fire chief. I'm still broke. But y'all tell me if I vote for black people are gonna fix things for me. So in a city with low upward mobility, with a city that unless you have a college degree, it's pretty hard to have a job. If you have all of that, you have to think about that when you're talking to a person at the door, because they're greeting you with skepticism. You didn't come here when the police shot my brother. You didn't come here when my landlord was putting me out. You didn't come here for none of that. But you did come to me to tell me why I need to vote. That's been the issue.
You can't leave it there because you come telling people to vote.
Yeah.
So now what do you say to them?
So I will tell you that too. So everybody doesn't know how to do canvassing. Folks just think you go by and just leave something on the door. If you're not willing to have a persuasion campaign, you're wasting your time and your money. So for us to do this, like us and unions believe, we don't ask people to do stuff, we pay people to do stuff because, you got to pay people a living wage. So for us to have people knocking on doors, we're paying them $25 an hour. But it's $25 an hour to have a conversation with me. What most folks are doing is either lit drops and they're calling it canvassing. So they're just walking by, I see them in the neighborhood, they're just putting stuff on your door. And they continue walking. They're not having a conversation. So that rate is really small. If you're going to do a canvas campaign, you need 3 contacts. One contact can be as simple as a lit drop, but you're eventually going to have at least 2 conversations where you're asking the person if they're voting, explaining to the person why they do vote. So one, folks don't always do canvassing, they do lip drops. And secondly, you've got to have a message. So what we try to do on the C4 side is find out what the message is. And when folks were saying, like the past couple of years, the party didn't fare well, specifically with black men, it's because the party picked the message and brought it to the neighborhood. So if I'm walking on the door, hey, I just want you to know, Joe Biden loves you. He forgave college debt. Bro, I didn't go to college, I ain't got no college debt. How about Joe forgive some rent? That's what you want to hear.
That's right.
So what you got to do is tailor your message to your community and make sure that they feel that what they want to hear is being heard. So what we're talking about on the doors is what's huge in this part of this is like your safety net and affordable housing. Those are the 2 big things. And I think folks get that confused with black men. The 2 things that black men care most about, I think, at least I can say, is a safety net for their family and being able to provide. So with what Republicans have sold everybody on, not just black men, the ones that's voting for them, but people in general. I'm gonna keep your taxes low. I'm gonna create a way for you to have a job. Now I'm gonna forgive everything that you need so that you can have a job. So that resonates to somebody that came out and has a record, can't get a job at Bank of America. What they want to hear is, with my record, how can I start something to provide for my family? So if you're telling black men specifically with a record, only thing you're talking about is how you're going to progress in a company or how I'm going to help you with that. They're not listening to you as the same. Does that make sense? Like, the party has decided, again, the way that most people in society have decided, I don't really want to deal with black people, but if I'm going to deal with black people, I would rather deal with issues that are softer and more family-oriented. So the party will talk to you about issues that black women, specifically taking care of a family, want to hear. But self-building, that's a message that Republicans win on. And when people don't have a job, what black men tell you is, I know Trump's prejudiced. I know he's a racist. But if Trump lets me start my own business, if Trump forgives the fact that I got a criminal record and lets me be able to do something to provide for my family, I'll vote for it. Does that make sense? This might not be the best message, but I can tell you, growing up in South Carolina, every black person was your friend and every redneck was your enemy. The redneck will pull over if your car breaks down, because he want to get you the hell out of the neighborhood. So you go pull over, your car breaks down in front of his house. Hey, buddy, I'll fix that tire, so I want to get you going. But the person receives some help. Does that make sense? So it's easier in these times to attract somebody that they don't think the other side has done much for them. And this side is at least saying, I don't like you, but I'll give you some freedom and help you do something to benefit you. You know what? While I'm giving out stuff, I'll give you $1,000 to start your little repair business. But in his mind, what the black person heard and black man's heard is, you're going to give me a way to control my own fate and control my own family. And if your redneck self come by my house after that, I'll shoot you. But you gave me that opportunity. And that's what you're getting from. I'd say it's not a big percentage. Most of the people that tell us that they're going to vote for Trump, they're not telling you they're going to vote for Trump. They're telling you that I don't agree with the stuff that I'm running on. And more than likely, I'm not going to vote. If I tell you I'm voting for Trump, you'll go away. That's what mandates you're hearing. Most of those people aren't going to vote. That's here. So that was the second thing you asked, the difference between rural and here. In Charlotte, a lot of that what you're hearing is I'm not going to vote, and I'm telling you that. But if we go down to eastern North Carolina, where we organize too, a lot of the things that we in Charlotte will say okay aren't the same with them. So a black man in eastern North Carolina may not agree, with a woman's right to choose. That's just not, you know what I'm saying? That's just not going to change. They don't agree with, a lot of my coalition. I'm sorry. LGBTQ is not going to move them. If that's an issue and it's a choice between that or with the black ministers in the East, and you're going to make LGBTQ rights big, they're not going to vote for you. If you're going to say abortion, they're not going to vote for you. So that's another issue. Does that make sense? And to give you that again, Georgia and North Carolina are similar, but Warnock, what was the biggest difference is they were able to figure a way to get rural Georgia to vote the same way as urban Georgia. And that's what we got to figure out. Atlanta and Georgia, the crazy thing is there is more rural population in here than there is in Georgia. So, if you can carry Atlanta, Savannah, what's the city where UGA is? Athens. If you can carry those, Savannah, if you can carry those, you can offset more conservatives than actually Charlotte, Raleigh, Greensboro, which seems crazy, but there's way more rural when it comes to this. And their ideology is a little different. Me being from South Carolina, I go home and I try to explain, I'm 55 now, I try to explain to someone 75, whatever. They're not gonna move off of what conservative points they had before. And the two biggest things I see different is, a woman's right to choose. And as much as I hated LGBTQ, and the other issue that's come up now has been this Palestinian conflict, and that divides two halves on my basis, because the Jewish base is huge in the Democratic Party, and so is so that's an issue. But the one thing that I can say, at least on the Kamala side, the numbers are showing, and the people on the door, they're excited about the Kamala part. I knock on the door, we talk to them, they're fired up about that. That's including black men. There's not here an issue about voting for Kamala over that. They don't have the respect for the Democratic Party that all black people should have, because they're like, we've been doing this for years, and I haven't seen much progress.
Okay, we got Miss Jackie, Shay, Doug, Thomas, Miss Dr. Thomas, and Miss Mary, and Amaya.
I just have a few comments. Just want to remind us that here at the Sarah Stevenson Tuesday Forum, we are nonpartisan. Though the discussion is good, but I wanted to at least highlight that. And as Robert indicated, when we've got to make at least 3 contacts with folk when it comes to changing a mind. And we were talking about people knocking on doors. I've had 2 knocks on my door within the last week. I'm an A voter. And now it used to be when folk knocked on doors, at least you look at the voter information so that you're not wasting your time by knocking on an A voter's door. And I wanted to also say on next Tuesday, we will be bringing organizations that are dealing with voter education issues. Because for many years we have done the piece on voter registration and get out the vote. And the issues piece is oftentimes lacking. So we will have 4 to 6 folk representing organizations here next week, including Team Unity. Thank you.
My question, I have a question, and I'd like for one of you or both of you to address the swing states where Trump has been bragging about the election officials that will be election deniers. And Rachel Maddow talks about it a lot, but no one else is really talking about that. And I think that that is something, when he says you don't need my vote, we don't need your vote, and he continues to say that, and he talks about those officials, deniers. Help me to understand the impact of that, and why are we not hearing more about that as we communicate in our communities about that happening? And of course they're talking about is being done in those swing states more so than anything else.
Part of the reason Robert is fielding all the questions is because I am volunteering and being a bit of coordinator with this effort that started about 2 weeks ago. So Robert has the depth of knowledge with a lot of the questions you're asking, but honestly, Ms. Laura, I think it's all by design. I mean, the reason we're not hearing about it is because they don't want us to hear about it. They don't want us to talk about substantive reasons and issues not to trust Donald Trump. This Project 25 is an old playbook. Ronald Reagan has been implementing a lot of these strategies. A part of this whole premise is because white people are afraid of losing their majority. And a lot of these efforts are to make sure that white people keep producing white people so they can be a predominant race in this country. So this is not anything that is not tactical, not intentional, it's by design. And the challenge we have in front of us is if we don't do something to stop it or mitigate it at least, then this absolutely will happen. And it's going to happen even faster. So we either have a choice of trying to vote against this and people who are going to make this happen in warp speed, or saying, just let it happen and it's going to happen anyway. So I do want to have a conversation with you definitely, because I want to hear more, because that understanding why people are motivated to make their decisions is really, really very important. You can't just say get out and vote because she's a black woman, vote because it's history, vote because that doesn't cut it. We need to understand why people are not voting and trying to give them information so they can make a different decision. But ultimately, Ms. Laura, all of it is intentional. Donald Trump is saying what he's been saying. He's going to continue to say what he's saying, and people are believing him for a variety of reasons. I do not know why, but it's also intentional that media doesn't cover some of those stories because they don't want us to challenge and to ask questions and to be more conscious with regards to what's happening.
All right, we have Ms. Carlenia Ivory, Sadaya, then Jay Hill.
Good morning. Thank you. Robert and Tiffany, I just think the world of both of you. Thank you for coming.
We appreciate you on city council. You pick the phone up and say, I might not be here for long, but tell me who you want me to put your foot on.
No, they didn't pay enough, I'm sorry. Disagree with you. You said that they don't say her name wrong. That doesn't necessarily mean they don't like her. That exception is Trump.
Yeah, that's what that means.
I know, I'm just saying, I want that clear. Now, what we're going to do, it has been listed, but are we listening? We can make our own list of what she's going to do. We can make our own list of what she's going to do, but we've got to make that list and pass it around. It doesn't have to be accurate. Nothing that Trump passes around is accurate. So make your own list. The other thing I want to say, we need to do the best that we can do. I don't care if it's one person at a time. I don't care if the president doesn't call you, the vice president, or Robert, or anybody. You go out. Everybody in this room got good sense. You know what we have to do. Now the question I have though is inclusiveness. Sometimes people do need direction. So Tiffany, when you talk about your group and the influencer, who are the influencers? These are grassroots people in this room. How many of you have been invited to a meeting or influence? Thank you for coming, but I'm asking the question because I get the calls all the time. So-and-so formed this group, so-and-so formed this group. I don't know nothing about. Don't get ticked. I was getting to say another word. Don't get ticked at that person because it doesn't matter. You continue to do what you need to do. If you want to get ticked, go tell them. But do what you need to do. But I do want to know, who are the influencers? Who are the grassroots people? How can everybody be included?
So in terms of the word influencer, Ms. Carlenia, that is with regards to a social media reference. These would be people who are on TikTok, Instagram, who are creating content. They post content, they post videos. So influencer in that realm would be people who have a certain number of followers. People are following them on these social media channels. In terms of this group that's meeting, The mayor is the person who has called a variety of nonprofit organizations together. And in fact, people at this meeting on Sunday was a completely different set from the meeting, the folks who met the first time. So it's not an official group of people. It's organizations like Team Unity. It's organizations like Robert's organization. Not Robert's organization. But it's organizations who are out getting people registered and trying to get people to the polls and getting information in people's hands. But it's not a group of, you are an influencer because you're at this meeting. It's whoever's doing some work, trying to get people in the room so we make sure there aren't 5 groups going to Slater Ridge Drive on Beatties Ford Road on Saturday and nobody's going to North Wendover, nobody's going over in Greertown on the same day. Just trying to figure out how do we make sure everybody is getting in touch. It's that kind of group. But we can give you a list once we get that together, for sure.
I'm not interested, I just want to make sure grassroots people, I don't have no social media. But I know what I can do.
Definitely. And again, I'm not, I don't think Tiffany and I are either one speaking for the mayor.
No,
But I just want to say, when the mayor called me from all of the work that I've done over the time, I told her, see, Forsyth is where I'm staying this time, I can't. From the conversation that I had, I'm thinking what the mayor was doing was, one, that piece, and 2, she was saying, get people that know people in a room. And the hardest thing here in Charlotte is figuring out how to make that perfect mix. And I think that's why you saw a separate group the next day, because I think she still keeps calling and saying, hey, or this person saying you're doing it, could you come? And I think that's her purpose, even though it may not get carried out to the level of what she was intending. Does that make sense? I didn't come to, defend the mayor, but I do think that her intent on this is good, and she's trying to bring in as many people as possible.
And it's not about the mayor, we're not going to blame the mayor. I'm saying what you just said about get people who know people, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hello. My question is pertaining to single policy voters. I know you talked about a lot of people, especially lower income rural people, they don't care about like curriculum, they don't care about reproductive rights. That's not something that directly affects them, but what they are worried about are employment rates. They're worried about inflation. They're worried about, I feel like this, I don't know, me personally, I haven't heard this yet, but guns. Guns is such a big issue. So many people who are pro-gun aren't necessarily that conservative, or it doesn't concern them, so they're not worried about it. And I feel like it's been a big shift. So I know I haven't been here that long, but from what I've seen, as long as I've been alive, I saw a big shift with the 2016 election from just simply Democrats to Republicans to Trump supporters, people actually going really hard for their politicians. And I've seen like a big shift back to less of being pro-politicians and more pro-policy. And that's where you get a lot of younger people who have seen both sides not do much for them. They don't necessarily want to go out and influence somebody to support somebody who they know is not going to go as hard for them as maybe like Trump with his policy. As you can see, we don't have a list. This is a very hard list. These are hard policies that he is trying to pass. So with that, getting those people who, hey, not necessarily worried about, oh, sorry, where's getting me today, but who, hey, I'm not against teaching civil rights and education, but I do want to keep my gun. And I feel like with that, I'm not anti-gun, I am pro-gun control though. I believe guns in the hands of the right people. But with that, the Republican Party has one of the largest advantages on that for Democrats. So do you have any idea how we could pull in maybe some of those more rural pro-gun people?
Yeah, here you have to be rural. I'm pro-gun. But I'm just saying, I'm carrying, keep my pistol. As long as there's the Klan, I'm gonna have my gun. But I also believe that people should have, that there's a limit. I shouldn't be able to have my firearm. I'm not gonna travel with my firearm unless it's locked. Get the compartment under the seat, put it in it, press the button, pops open, there's the gun. Make sure you take your gun out. The two biggest issues for our gun safety that I think folks aren't getting is the fact that people don't store their guns well, so kids get them. You don't store your gun well in your house, in your car. You should leave it in the car. People break in your car and they get them. There's the loopholes that need to be closed that let you go and buy a gun without the checks. If you buy it at a gun show, that should be closed. We need red flag laws to be passed so that if a woman or man is in fear of their partner and can go and tell the judge and show, I'm in fear of my partner, until this gets fixed, I don't need him to have a gun. There should be red flag laws. I think the Democrats and progressives understand that. The problem is how the right is able to spin it and the availability for misinformation. The biggest thing that I've seen, Madam President, for your generation, the ones that we need to influence, is what's used to influence. Like, when I was young, all we had was, television. Now, I know my dad would say at his time, all he had was ABC, NBC, and CNN. So, not CNN, CBS. CNN, that was us. But the message had to be gone through. Do they talk about peer reviewed in high school now, or is that just college, right? The message to get on an official journalism piece has to be, peer reviewed, has to go through some checks. Even like Channel 9, if Channel 9 came out and said something wrong, they have to, by law, once they find out, go on and retract it. With now, I would say, and we're not just talking about your age group, I'd say probably 70% of your age group gets their news off of social media instead of proponents. But for us, even in my age group, from when we were out knocking on doors for COVID, get their news from TikTok, from social media. And what it's allowed is there's always been, one of the biggest things you study as a political science major is misinformation. That's always been one of our campaign deals. Whether we were talking about Lady Saigon back in World War II to the present, there's always going to be a side for misinformation. The right has figured out how to put misinformation out for an old generation by buying up AM radio stations, and older people that are sitting in the house can keep AM radio station all day and listen to misinformation, and nobody calls them out. Nobody says, oh, that wasn't peer reviewed. And for young people, TikTok and all of that are just filled with misinformation that is so hard for us to combat. Because if I told folks that, we can fix this, but the social media told folks the Illuminati is controlling Charlotte, folks will believe that Illuminati is controlling Charlotte more than they can. And that's hard to overcome.
Okay.
Man, they present with so much confidence, though. You gotta believe it. It's like, oh no, I know this is factual.
Oh, yeah.
Look at the bravado. All right, Dr. Thomas.
Yeah. I was watching your feet. You walked yourself out of your shoe.
Yeah, these are my canvas shoes. These are ones that I've used, yeah.
Well, the night I was watching, one of the nights I was watching upcoming President Harris, I got up and I jumped up and took off both my shoes. I was feeling it. It got me to start thinking about Joshua fought the Battle of Jericho. And what was I going to do with all of that? And I went down the hall and talked to one of my conservative friends. I'm at Southminster Retirement Center. That little energy gave me, that big energy gave me the courage I needed to have to go to talk. What are you doing with the energy that takes you out of your shoes? What are you doing different this year than you have done in past years?
So I took the gloves, so normally when folks are here, I can say, I've always had the C4 part. We've always had that. We just never really used the C4 part. We stay on the C3 side. This year we decided the gloves came off. You know, we're putting together all these different pieces about why no Mark Robinson, why no Trump. So our message on the door is vote for Kamala or pick cotton. You know, we've taken the gloves off this time, if that makes sense.
Yes.
All right. Jay Hill.
Yeah, appreciate y'all being here. I've been thinking about this for a long time. I've listened to you all talk about all the things that go into a voter's mind or comes through a voter's mind, especially a Democrat. And as a black man, I'm sitting here like, man, and I felt like this for a long time. Maybe you can help me. You're on the front lines talking to folks. It seems like all of this who shot John, as my dad would say, that it takes to easily distract us from voting. And I feel like it's not like that with the Republican Party. Now, I know there's black folks who hey, I'm a Democrat, I vote Democrat, straight Democrat, all the time. But I just feel like on the Republican side, there's just this, hey, we're lockstep. I'm a Republican, I rep it, and I'm proud to be a Republican, and that's what I'm voting for. I don't care if I don't like Donald Trump, I'm voting for him because he's Republican. Their affiliation takes precedence over what they feel. And why is it so hard for Democrats to do that? Is that the Democratic Party, like the leadership, having that problem, or why is it like that? Is that misinformation that you described? Like, what is the issue there?
I don't have an answer, but I have the same question. Why there is this level of allegiance to him as a person. It goes back to Madam President's comment as well. The Republican Party has somehow masterfully created Donald Trump as the strong man, regardless of his moral, philosophical, spiritual bankruptness. They are in lockstep with this person, even before he has clear policies. A lot of arguments you hear that, well, Kamala did not articulate her policies. Well, she did. She has it available. You can see what she's doing for rent and for healthcare costs and prescription drugs. You can see all of that. So it isn't a matter of, it isn't apples to apples, I say comparison. But whatever he has been able to do with the Republican Party is what I sit and wonder about as well. How is it that despite all of his failings, all of his moral ineptitude, all of his depravity, people are still voting for this man, and it is voting for a man despite policy, despite what he has actually done, despite what he has actually articulated to help the American people. Outside of Project 25, I was with his playbook, and I don't know the reason for that, and I don't know why the same isn't true on the Democratic side. I was going to vote for Joe Biden even if he passed away. He could have died, and I would have voted for him. Because at the end of the day, I said, well, even if he gets into office and he is there from November to December and something happens, Kamala is up next. That is enough for me. Yes, I want the policy. Yes, I want them to be 10 toes down on what they say and deliver. At the end of the day, the president, we know the structure of government. The president can only do what he or she can do when Congress is in place, when the Supreme Court is in place. If we don't vote in all instances, both nationally and locally, we're not going to experience anything of what we are aspiring to experience. So it has to be all of that. But at the end of the day, I'm locked in on the Democratic ticket, on voting for, again, Biden if he passed away, President Kamala now, because I have the same passion, if you will, for this side of the, well, not your side, this side of the conversation, as they have for theirs. So I would love to hear us talk about that, honestly.
So it's easy if you can boil your party down to a few things. And if you can boil it down to God, country, taxes, capitalism, that's the Republican Party. It's always been easy. Now, did they get hijacked for Trump? Yes. Will that stop them from getting what they want done if they'll just accept hate and that? is fine for them. You know what I'm saying? Because no matter whether Trump does stuff out of hate and all of that, he's still going to make sure that you pay low taxes, that everybody can go and say America and can do all of that. That's the difference. You know what I'm saying? For us, it's always harder as the big tent. I got to figure out, the Republicans aren't having a fight over Jews and Palestinians. You know, that's the party. So I got an issue, but the party's got to fight that. They don't have an issue with police reform, because the police are always right. Shoot who you want. You know, I have that, and when I say Black Lives Matter, sometimes mess up the more right wing of the Democratic Party. So the party being so big is huge, is a difference. And the second fact with when we get to them, their party will still get what they want, even though it's the party of hate, because it's already, you know what I'm saying? Trump's not going to raise their taxes. He's not going to do anything that they consider is not American. So if Trump wants to deport 1 million people and want to do all of that, the public is like, that's fine, as long as you don't raise my taxes and you don't make me live next door to black people.
And we got to get out of here. It is 10 o'clock, but I think this is such an important question to ask, especially with both of you, your expertise. How do we engage the exhausted? I don't want nobody coming to my house. I don't want another text message. These commercials are getting on my nerves. How do we keep people enthused or focused and understanding the assignment without being overbearing?
Tiffany's the one with the Gantt chart. She keeps people moving.
My apologies. I'm a curious person, so I have more questions, Winston, than answers. And I think we, despite the fatigue that people are experiencing with the commercials and the text messages and the emails, we have to just push through it for the next 70 days. That's a small price to pay for 4 years. 70 days for 4 years or 8 years. I think we can do that. There is a petition that's being circulated now, some young black women at USC. The Proud Boys are having a meeting on the campus of USC, and they're roasting Vice President Kamala Harris. They have used the vilest language to describe her and to mispronounce her name using really crass language. So if the Proud Boys are going to be doing what they're doing and mobilizing and getting their side, if you will, animated, I'm willing to put up with 70 more days of commercials and text messages and emails, and I think this is the sacrifice we have to make.
All right, with that said, ladies.
Now, that's South Carolina.
Yes, USC.
USC, South Carolina, not Southern California.
Class of 92, okay?
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, please, a round of applause for Mr. Robert Dawkins and Ms. Tiffany Capers. Thank you so much. If you have announcements, please send them to steve@sjohnston@tuesdayforumcharlotte.org. Come back next week where our guest will be the incredible